How did a group of isolated islands transform into one of the most influential nations in the world? From samurai warriors to economic superpower, this is the epic history of Japan. Set expectations. We'll cover the entire history of Japan, from ancient myths to its modern rise as a global leader. Stay tuned to uncover the fascinating journey of this island nation. Ancient Japan, the birth of a nation. Jomon period, 14,000 BCE 300 BCE. The Jomon period marks the earliest era of human settlement in Japan. During this time, the inhabitants were primarily hunter-gatherers who lived in small, scattered communities. They are most famous for their pottery, which is among the oldest in the world and features intricate cord-mark designs. Jomon means cord pattern. These early settlers relied on fishing, hunting, and foraging for survival, and they lived a semi-sedentary lifestyle, making use of natural resources around Japan's forests and coasts. The Jomon period laid the foundation for Japanese culture and craftsmanship. Yayoi period, 300 BCE a 300s. The Yayoi period ushered in significant technological and societal changes, largely influenced by contact with mainland Asia. This era saw the introduction of rice farming, which became the backbone of Japanese agriculture and fostered population growth and settlement. Metal tools and weapons made from bronze and iron were also introduced, improving efficiency in farming and warfare. Social structures began to emerge, with villages evolving into hierarchical communities led by powerful clans. The transition from a hunter-gatherer society to an agricultural one set the stage for the rise of centralized authority in Japan. Kofun period, 300 A 538. The Kofun period is named after the massive burial mounds, Kofun, constructed during this era, which symbolized the growing power of Japan's ruling elite. These mounds, some as large as modern stadiums, were often keyhole-shaped and contained elaborate grave goods, such as weapons, armor, and mirrors, reflecting influence from Korea and China. This period also saw the rise of powerful clans, such as the Yamato clan, which began to consolidate power and lay the foundation for Japan's imperial line. The Kofun period marks the beginning of centralized leadership and a unified cultural identity in ancient Japan. Classical Japan, the rise of culture and power. Asuka period, 538 A 710. The Asuka period marks a transformative era in Japan's history, when major cultural and political influences from China and Korea began shaping Japanese society. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of Buddhism, which blended with native Shinto beliefs to create a unique spiritual and cultural landscape. Buddhism brought new art, architecture, and philosophies, including a focus on harmony and enlightenment. Politically, this period saw the establishment of a centralized government inspired by Chinese Confucian ideals. Prince Shotoku played a pivotal role by promoting reforms that unified Japan under a more structured, hierarchical system. The 17-article constitution, attributed to Shotoku, emphasized the importance of morality and governance, setting the stage for Japan's future development as a state. Nara period, 710 A 794. The Nara period is marked by the establishment of Japan's first permanent capital, Nara, modeled after the Chinese city of Chang'an. This era solidified Japan's identity as a centralized state, with Buddhist temples such as Todaiji, housing the Great Buddha, becoming prominent symbols of cultural and religious unity. It was also during the Nara period that Japanese literature and history began to flourish. The Kojiki, record of ancient matters, and Nihon Shoki, chronicles of Japan, were written, documenting Japan's mythology, early history, and genealogies of the imperial family. These texts played a key role in legitimizing imperial rule and preserving Japan's cultural heritage. Han period, 794 A 1185. The Han period is often called Japan's classical golden age, as it was a time of extraordinary cultural refinement. The imperial court moved to Kyoto, then known as Hankyo, which became the political and cultural center of Japan for over 1,000 years. Court life during this period was characterized by sophistication, with poetry, calligraphy, and aesthetic pursuits taking center stage. This is when Japan began to develop a uniquely Japanese cultural identity, distinct from Chinese influence. One of the greatest achievements of the Han period was The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, considered the world's first novel. This literary masterpiece provides a glimpse into the lives of the aristocracy and remains a cornerstone of Japanese literature. While the Han period was culturally rich, political power began to shift away from the imperial court to powerful warrior clans, setting the stage for the feudal era. Feudal Japan, the Age of the Samurai, 1185–1603, Kamakura period, 1185–1333, the rise of the samurai class and the first shogunate. The Kamakura period marks the beginning of Japan's feudal era, where the samurai class rose to dominance, shaping the political and military structure of the nation. After defeating the Taira clan in the Genpei War, Minamoto no Yoritomo established the Kamakura shogunate in 1185, becoming Japan's first shogun, military dictator. This created a system where real power rested with the shogun and the samurai, while the emperor remained a symbolic figure. During this period, the samurai upheld a strict code of loyalty and martial skill, solidifying their role as Japan's ruling class. The Kamakura shogunate faced its greatest challenge with the Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281, led by Kublai Khan. Though heavily outnumbered, Japan successfully repelled the Mongols, aided by strategic defense and the famous kamikaze or divine winds typhoons that destroyed the Mongol fleets. This victory strengthened Japan's sense of identity and independence but strained the Kamakura government's finances, contributing to its eventual downfall. Muromachi period, 1336–1573, Ashikaga shogunate and cultural flourishing amidst conflict. The Muromachi period, named after the district in Kyoto where the Ashikaga shogunate established its headquarters, was a time of both cultural growth and political instability. After overthrowing the Kamakura shogunate, Ashikaga Takaji became shogun, but the Ashikaga shogunate struggled to maintain centralized control, leading to frequent conflicts between powerful regional lords, daimyo. Despite the turmoil, this era saw a flourishing of Japanese culture, heavily influenced by Zen Buddhism. Key cultural developments included Zen Buddhism. Its emphasis on simplicity and mindfulness influenced everything from garden design to art and the way of tea ceremony. The Chanon, or traditional Japanese tea ceremony, was refined during this period, embodying the Zen ideals of harmony and tranquility. No theater, a classical form of drama blending music, dance, and storytelling. No theater emerged as a major art form. The Muromachi shogunate's authority weakened over time, leading to the outbreak of the Sengoku period, a time of widespread civil war. Sengoku period, 1467–1603, the Warring States era. The Sengoku period, or Warring States era, was marked by nearly constant civil war and political fragmentation as powerful daimyo competed for control of Japan. The Ashikaga shogunate became largely irrelevant, and regional warlords ruled their territories independently, often clashing with one another. It was during this time that the samurai class reached its peak in terms of both military importance and influence. Amid the chaos, three key figures emerged as unifiers of Japan: Oda Nobunaga, 1534–1582. Nobunaga was a revolutionary military leader who used innovative strategies and firearms, introduced by European traders, to defeat rival daimyo. He conquered much of central Japan but was betrayed and forced to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, before completing his unification efforts. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, 1537–1598, Nobunaga's loyal general, Hideyoshi, continued his mission. He consolidated control over Japan, implemented land reforms, and attempted to invade Korea in an ambitious but ultimately unsuccessful campaign. Tokugawa Ieyasu, 1543–1616. After Hideyoshi's death, Ieyasu emerged victorious at the decisive Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. establishing the Tokugawa Shogunate in 1603. This marked the end of the Sengoku period and the beginning of a new era of peace and stability in Japan. The Sengoku period was transformative, as it saw the introduction of new military technologies, the rise of castle towns, and the establishment of foundations for a unified Japan. The era also left a legacy of resilience and adaptability that shaped the nation's identity going forward. The Tokugawa Shogunate, Peace and Isolation, 1603–1868, Pax Tokugawa, a period of peace and stability under Tokugawa Ieyasu. The Tokugawa Shogunate, established by Tokugawa Ieyasu in 1603, marked the beginning of a remarkably stable era in Japanese history. After centuries of warfare during the Sengoku period, Ieyasu's victory at the Battle of Sekigahara allowed him to consolidate power and unify Japan. He became the shogun and established a feudal system centered in Edo, modern-day Tokyo, which became the seat of government. The Pax Tokugawa, literally Tokugawa peace, was characterized by political stability and strict control over the samurai, daimyo, and other social classes. The Tokugawa government implemented a rigid social hierarchy, samurai at the top as loyal retainers of the shogun, farmers who provided food, considered vital to society, artisans and merchants, who were lower on the social scale but became increasingly influential during this period. The daimyo were required to spend alternate years in Edo under the policy of Senkin Kotai, alternate attendance, which helped maintain loyalty to the shogun and prevented rebellions. This era brought over 2 centuries of peace and internal stability, allowing Japan to focus on cultural and economic growth. Shikoku, the closed country policy. One of the most defining features of the Tokugawa shogunate was the policy of Shikoku, meaning closed country, which effectively isolated Japan from most of the world. This policy, introduced in the 1630s, aimed to limit foreign influence and prevent potential threats to Tokugawa authority. The shogunate expelled Christian missionaries and banned the practice of Christianity, which they saw as a destabilizing force. Foreign trade was restricted to specific ports, such as Nagasaki, where only a few approved foreign powers, namely the Dutch, Chinese, and Koreans, could trade under strict conditions. The Shikoku policy had several significant effects. It prevented colonization by European powers, allowing Japan to retain its sovereignty during an age when much of Asia was colonized. Internal industries and agriculture thrived due to the absence of foreign competition. It preserved Japanese culture, traditions, and societal structure without external interference. However, while isolation brought benefits, it also led to technological stagnation compared to the rapid industrialization happening in Europe and other parts of the world. Cultural Golden Age, Kabuki theater, woodblock prints, ukiyo-e, and haiku poetry. The Tokugawa era was a time of immense cultural growth, especially among the merchant class in the urban centers like Edo, Kyoto, and Osaka. Despite their lower social status, merchants gained economic power, and their wealth fueled a vibrant art scene. Kabuki theater. Kabuki emerged as a popular form of entertainment in the 17th century. Known for its elaborate costumes, dramatic storylines, and exaggerated movements, Kabuki was initially performed by women but later became an all-male art form after female performers were banned. It became a defining feature of Edo culture and reflected the tastes and concerns of the common people. Woodblock prints, ukiyo-e, meaning pictures of the floating world, became a signature art form of the period. These woodblock prints depicted landscapes, everyday life, Kabuki actors, and courtesans. Artists like Hokusai and Hiroshige gained fame for their stunning works, including the iconic The Great Wave off Kanagawa. Ukiyo-e captured the beauty and simplicity of life in Tokugawa Japan and remains a cornerstone of Japanese art. Haiku poetry. Haiku, a form of short poetry consisting of 17 syllables, in a 5-7-5 pattern, flourished during the Tokugawa period. Poets like Matsuo Basho elevated haiku to a refined art form, using nature and simple imagery to express profound ideas. Basho's works, such as his famous poem about the frog jumping into the old pond, are celebrated worldwide for their elegance and depth. This cultural golden age helped define Japan's artistic and literary identity, leaving a legacy that continues to be celebrated today. The Meiji Restoration, modernizing Japan, 1868–1912, end of the shogunate, the fall of the Tokugawa Shogunate. The Tokugawa Shogunate's policy of isolation, Shikoku, allowed Japan to maintain peace for over 250 years, but it also left the country technologically and militarily behind Western nations. By the mid-19th century, Western powers began pressing Japan to open its borders for trade. In 1853, U.S. Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in Edo Bay with a fleet of black ships, demanding that Japan end its isolation. Under pressure, the Tokugawa Shogunate signed the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854, opening Japanese ports to the U.S. The unequal treaties signed with Western nations weakened the Tokugawa Shogunate's authority, sparking widespread dissatisfaction among the Japanese population, particularly the samurai and regional daimyo. Many believed Japan needed to modernize to avoid being dominated by foreign powers, like China had been during the Opium Wars. A coalition of reform-minded samurai from domains such as Satsuma and Choshu overthrew the Tokugawa Shogunate in 1868, restoring imperial rule under Emperor Meiji. This event, known as the Meiji Restoration, marked the end of feudal Japan and the beginning of a new era of rapid modernization. Meiji reforms, rapid modernization inspired by Western models. After taking power, Emperor Meiji and his advisors embarked on an ambitious program of modernization to transform Japan into a competitive, industrialized nation. The Meiji government borrowed ideas from Western nations, restructuring Japan's political, social, and economic systems. Key reforms included industrialization. Japan rapidly built factories, railways, and communication networks. Modern industries like shipbuilding, steel production, and textiles were established. The government also encouraged private enterprise through Saibutsu with large family-run conglomerates such as Mitsubishi and Sumitomo. These efforts turned Japan into an industrialized nation within decades. Education. A new education system was introduced, inspired by Western models. Elementary education became compulsory, and universities were established to train a new generation of leaders in science, technology, and administration. Education emphasized loyalty to the emperor and national pride, fostering a sense of unity. Military modernization. The samurai class was abolished, and a conscripted national army was created, modeled after the Prussian military. The navy was modernized with help from Britain. These changes allowed Japan to build a strong and disciplined military capable of competing with Western powers. Political changes. The feudal system was dismantled, and a centralized government was established. In 1889, Japan adopted the Meiji Constitution, creating a constitutional monarchy with a parliament, diet. Though real power remained with the emperor and his advisors, the Meiji reforms were remarkably successful, propelling Japan from a feudal society to a modern industrial state in less than half a century. Japan's emergence as a power. Victories in the First Sino-Japanese War and Russo-Japanese War. The modernization of Japan's military and industry allowed the nation to assert itself on the global stage. Two major wars during this period showcased Japan's newfound strength. First Sino-Japanese War, 1894–1895, Japan fought China over control of Korea, which was then a tributary state of the Qing dynasty. Japan's modernized army and navy easily defeated China, marking the first time an Asian nation had decisively defeated a major power. The Treaty of Shimonoseki granted Japan control over Taiwan and influence in Korea, establishing Japan as a dominant force in East Asia. Russo-Japanese War, 1904–1905, Japan faced off against the Russian Empire over territorial disputes in Manchuria and Korea. This war was a turning point in global history. Japan's victory shocked the world, as it marked the first time an Asian nation defeated a European great power. The Treaty of Portsmouth, brokered by U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, recognized Japan's control over Korea and parts of Manchuria. These victories cemented Japan's status as a world power and demonstrated the success of its modernization efforts. By the end of the Meiji era, Japan had transformed from an isolated feudal society into an industrialized empire with ambitions that rivaled the Western powers. Imperial Japan, expansion in World War II, 1912–1945, Taisho and early Showa periods, industrial growth and Western influence. The Taisho period, 1912–1926, began with Emperor Taisho ascending the throne. This era was marked by industrial growth and increased political democratization, known as the Taisho democracy. Japan experienced economic expansion, fueled by World War I, as it supplied goods and materials to the Allied powers. By the end of the war, Japan had emerged as an economic and military power in Asia. During this period, Japan adopted Western cultural elements, particularly in fashion, architecture, and arts, blending them with traditional Japanese styles. Urban centers like Tokyo and Osaka became hubs of modernity. However, rapid industrialization also caused economic inequality, labor unrest, and social upheaval. When Emperor Showa, Hirohito, began his reign in 1926, the nation entered the Showa period. Although Japan was still modernizing, it faced economic challenges during the Great Depression of the 1930s, leading to a rise in militarism. Politicians and military leaders argued that Japan needed to expand its territory to secure resources and strengthen its economy, setting the stage for aggressive imperialism. Expansionism. The invasion of Manchuria and China in the 1930s, Japan embarked on an aggressive campaign of territorial expansion, driven by its need for natural resources such as oil, coal, and iron. This era marked the rise of military influence over Japanese politics. Invasion of Manchuria, 1931. In 1931, Japan staged the Mukden Incident, a fabricated attack on a Japanese railway, as a pretext to invade Manchuria, a resource-rich region in northeastern China. The Japanese army swiftly took control, establishing the puppet state of Manchukuo. The League of Nations condemned Japan's actions, but Japan withdrew from the organization, signaling its disregard for international opinion. Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937–1945, tensions between Japan and China escalated into full-scale war in 1937. The conflict began with the Marco Polo Bridge incident and led to brutal atrocities, such as the Nanjing Massacre, where hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians and prisoners of war were killed. Japan sought to dominate China but became bogged down in a prolonged and costly conflict. This war further strained Japan's resources and fueled tensions with Western powers, especially the United States. Japan's expansionism and its alliance with Axis powers Germany and Italy increased global tensions, making Japan a key player in the events leading to World War II. World War II, Japan's role in the global conflict. Joining the Axis powers in the attack on Pearl Harbor, 1941. In 1940, Japan officially joined the Axis powers, allying with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Japan's leaders aimed to establish dominance in the Asia-Pacific region through a Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere, presenting themselves as liberators of Asian countries from Western colonial rule, though their actual goal was imperial domination. The U.S. imposed economic sanctions on Japan, including an oil embargo, which crippled Japan's economy and military. In response, Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941, bringing the United States into the war. This marked the beginning of the Pacific War, a major theater of World War II. Japanese expansion in the Pacific. Following Pearl Harbor, Japan achieved rapid victories, seizing territories across Southeast Asia and the Pacific, including the Philippines, Indonesia, and Singapore. However, these early successes were short-lived as Allied forces regrouped. Turning point and decline. The Battle of Midway in 1942 was a decisive defeat for Japan, marking the turning point in the Pacific War. Allied forces launched a counteroffensive, engaging in a strategy of island hopping to retake Japanese-occupied territories. Japan faced resource shortages and mounting losses as the war dragged on. The end of the war, 1945. In 1945, the Allied forces invaded Okinawa, bringing the war closer to Japan's home islands. Meanwhile, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima, August 6, and Nagasaki, August 9, causing unprecedented destruction and killing over 200,000 people. Combined with the Soviet Union's invasion of Japanese-occupied Manchuria, these events forced Japan to surrender on August 15, 1945. Japan's defeat was formalized with the signing of the Instrument of Surrender on September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri. This marked the end of World War II and the conclusion of Imperial Japan's expansionist ambitions. Post-war Japan, From Ruins to Economic Miracle, 1945–1990, U.S. Occupation, 1945–1952, Rebuilding Japan under Allied supervision. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the country was devastated. Its cities lay in ruins. Its economy was shattered, and its people faced food shortages and homelessness. The Allied powers, led by the United States under General Douglas MacArthur, occupied Japan to oversee its reconstruction and democratization. Key reforms during this period included: new constitution. The 1947 Constitution established Japan as a parliamentary democracy, renouncing war and prohibiting the maintenance of a military for offensive purposes. Article 9. Land reforms. Large estates were redistributed to tenant farmers, reducing social inequality in rural areas. Economic stabilization. Labor unions were encouraged, and industry was reorganized to rebuild Japan's economy. The U.S. occupation officially ended in 1952 with the Treaty of San Francisco, which restored Japan's sovereignty. However, the groundwork laid during this period allowed Japan to embark on a remarkable recovery. Economic miracle. Becoming a global powerhouse in the decades following the U.S. occupation, Japan achieved unprecedented economic growth, known as the economic miracle. This transformation was driven by several factors: government-industry collaboration. Japan's government, working closely with companies, promoted industrial growth through subsidies, tax breaks, and technological advancements. Export-oriented economy. Japanese companies focused on producing high-quality goods for export, particularly in industries like electronics, automobiles, and machinery. Iconic brands like Sony, Toyota, and Honda became global leaders. Education and workforce. A highly educated workforce and a culture of discipline and innovation fueled productivity and innovation. Global events. The Korean War, 1950–1953, created demand for Japanese goods, kickstarting the economy. By the 1980s, Japan was the second largest economy in the world, excelling in manufacturing and technological innovation. Cultural renaissance. Japan's global soft power. During the post-war period, Japan also experienced a cultural renaissance that brought its traditions and modern culture to the global stage. Anime and manga. Japanese animation and comics gained massive international popularity, with franchises like Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and Studio Ghibli becoming cultural phenomena. Cuisine. Japanese food, such as sushi, ramen, and tempura, became staples worldwide, celebrated for their flavor and artistry. Technology and design. Japan's advancements in robotics, gaming, Nintendo, Sony, and design captured global attention. This cultural soft power solidified Japan's influence in shaping global trends. Modern Japan, challenges and resilience. 1998–present. Economic stagnation. The lost decade and beyond. In the 1990s, Japan's economic boom came to a halt following the burst of a real estate and stock market bubble. This period, often called the lost decade, saw slow economic growth, rising debt, and deflation. Despite these setbacks, Japan retained its position as a major economic player, continuing to lead in technology, manufacturing, and innovation. Cultural leadership. Shaping global trends. Japan remains a cultural powerhouse, influencing global tastes in technology, art, and entertainment. Technology. Japan continues to lead in robotics, green technology, and precision engineering. Entertainment. Anime, manga, and video games remain immensely popular, While Japanese fashion and design inspire global trends, cultural preservation, traditional arts, such as tea ceremonies and martial arts, coexist with modern culture, making Japan a unique blend of old and new. Current challenges: aging population and natural disasters. Modern Japan faces significant challenges that require resilience and adaptation. Aging population: Japan has one of the world's oldest populations, causing labor shortages and increasing pressure on social services. Natural disasters: earthquakes, tsunamis, and typhoons frequently affect Japan. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, which led to the Fukushima nuclear disaster, was a stark reminder of these vulnerabilities. Global dynamics: Japan is navigating its role in a shifting geopolitical landscape, balancing relationships with the US, China, and other nations while maintaining its economic competitiveness. Despite these challenges, Japan continues to innovate and find ways to thrive, demonstrating its enduring resilience. Conclusion: 9:38 10 o'clock. Recap the journey from ancient myths of emperors and samurai warriors to modern skyscrapers and cutting-edge technology. Japan's history is a testament to its resilience and adaptability. It's a story of tradition meeting progress, and a nation that never stops reinventing itself. Call to action: what part of Japan's history fascinates you the most? Is it the ancient samurai, the cultural boom of the Edo period, or the technological marvels of today? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BritBuzz, and hit the bell for more captivating stories from around the world. See you next time.